Well, hello and welcome. We are coming to you on the feast of the Epiphany of the Lord. And as you may remember, last week I think we had
A break.
a break, but the week before we had the absence of Father Joshua, and the elf on the shelf sat in for him in his position. This week, of course, we have a full complement, and we have an addition. So, as many of you remember, my sweet dog Buddy passed away in October, and on the feast of St. John the Evangelist on Tuesday, Buddy's successor entered in my life, and his name is Bellamico, and I call him Bello. So we thought we would present him to all of you and add him to the conversation. He seems to be lively. So Father Ed Estock here.
Father Joshua Treffney.
Father Michael.
And Jim, the pastoral intern.
Right, and we're, as you know, or maybe you don't know, some people call this Russian Christmas, Little Christmas in the Eastern tradition, Feast of the Three Kings in Spain. I know that's Los Tres Reyes. That was the big day when all the kids got their gifts because the kings bring the gifts. So in here it's called the Epiphany.
Yeah. And Epiphany, so we here at St. Albert's and in many places have the tradition of celebrating the three kings by chalking over our doors with their initials and the year as a blessing for the home. So we'll be, so look out for that this coming weekend. But the reason that we do that is because we are celebrating what is traditionally called the Feast of the Epiphany in the church. And Epiphany means manifestation from above. So this is, there's many epiphanies that happen throughout the scriptures, but today we're focusing on this manifestation of Jesus being revealed to the three kings from the east. And that journey from the east to Jesus and how they interact and the things that they bring all reveals something special about God and his relationship to the entire world.
Right. And so, as Father Joshua was mentioning, the marking of the doors, we typically do 2-0. So for the millennium that we're in, 2-0. And then we put Caspar, so we put a C plus an M for Melchior plus a B for Balthasar.
Oh, I thought they were crosses. They're plus sign?
I'm sorry. Yes, but it looks like a plus sign or a cross. It would be a Jerusalem cross, however, not a Latin cross. So just to thank Father Joshua for the correction. So, and it was Father Joshua's idea that Bella would be part of the video. So that's why I'm sharing some of his impatience with Father Joshua.
I'm excited.
So, anyway, so we are marking the door in for the new year with the remembrance of the traditional names of the three kings. Maybe you didn't know they had names.
Does that does that complete the thing? There's no, you don't.
Oh, and then you put the 23 at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So 20 plus C plus M plus B plus 23. So thank you. Yes, so that's the whole thing. And at St. Albert, we're going to give you a packet, piece of chalk, blessed, and a prayer card and an explanation. So that's part of the tradition here. And so these three kings, as Father Joshua, or Magi as they're called, are interesting characters to us. And they stand a bit as role models for us in the call to the journey of faith and conversion. And so that's what we were thinking about today. So maybe the journey of faith needs to be understood. The journey of faith is seeking and journeying through life with the goal of having an encounter, authentic encounter with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why the Magi kind of look like people of the world, like me and you, us. and they are seeking deeper meaning and the presence of God uh, in their life by following the star.
I'm just trying to he's trying to eat the microphone, so it's distracting him.
Well, and pertinent to our lives upon finding what they're really looking for, upon encountering Jesus and having, I think what you would say, an authentic encounter with Jesus, with Christ, they go forward in a new way. They don't retrace their steps. They don't go back from where they came or go back the way they came. They go forward in a new direction, which is emblematic of the call to conversion and what we should be doing in our lives as we encounter Christ, whether that's in prayer, in the sacraments, in one another, in the church community. All these places where Christ is present in the Word. When we encounter Christ, we should search for that true conversion and go forward in a new way, which can be, there might be big turns in our lives where we have a conversion or a reversion to the practice of the faith, or really allow ourselves to be pulled out of bad patterns, things like that. But so that's in big ways, but even in small ways, on a daily basis too, we encounter Christ and go forward in a new direction. Might be having a bad day and be encountering people in sort of a moody sort of way, and then take a quick second to reflect um, on the life of Christ, or say a quick prayer, and kind of intentionally go forward in a kinder, more friendly manner. So even in those small daily ways too, we're called to conversion and to meet Christ and turn a corner and go a new way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you just made something clear to me, or an insight. And these magi were able to use hatred, violence, and opposition to Jesus in person of Herod, King Herod, as a means for finding Jesus. So, many of you may be saying, my life is miserable, blah, 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 so how could I be on the spiritual journey? And I was, well, look at the Magi. They ran into some really bloody, nasty business and evil incarnate almost, and they were able to get from that guy what they needed to find Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had good reason to fear that person and to maybe conform their lives to that person because he had given them explicit instruction. And nonetheless, they were open to the movement of the Spirit of God, and they did not remain faithful to the evil plot.
Mm-hmm.
Which Father Michael's saying that maybe it's something nasty has gotten a hold of you. And so this openness to encountering Jesus again in your heart and in your life, and then amending the way you are walking.
I think too, there's, even if you take it another step in that same, because right, all of these things have many layers to them. But if you take that same image that you're talking about, when we do start, right, so they were already seeking after Jesus. They didn't know where he was, but they were already on this journey. So they had some kind of movement towards the Lord. And then they experienced someone who was really against them. And how often in our own lives do we, make a step towards the Lord, and then someone, says, oh, why don't we do this thing we used to do? Or why don't we, act this way like we used to, or whatever, so when we start to begin our conversion, we find opposition in our friends or family or people who want us to behave as though we haven't experienced the Lord. And so they follow that path out into a true and deeper conversion too. Mm-hmm. So there's obviously many, many layers to any gospel story.
Yeah. I imagine it's a common experience, right? Is that I found the Lord, I went on this retreat, or whatever the case may be, and then I experienced this terrible temptation against it. And I think I have often heard people say, why would the Lord let this happen to me when I was just getting on the right track and all that kind of stuff? Okay, well, we should have been prepared for that, right? Or maybe we're never prepared, but.
Well, Ignatius tells us very clearly to prepare. During times of consolation, you gather those graces up and hold them for times of desolation. So.
And the other thing Ignatius is very clear about is that there's the good spirit and the evil spirit.
Right.
So yeah, it's not like there's just one influence in our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Magi's really stand as an icon and an image of what a life of faith looks like. And I know you're probably shocked to hear that because they weren't Christians. But
They weren't even Jews.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, they were not. They weren't. Jews. And so how there's a model for how to live a spiritual life, maybe even more than a religious life. It's a spiritual life, and then how to be open to growth on that process. You know, God's never done with us.
Well, the interesting too is Father Michael was talking about journey and small changes versus big changes and all that. It reminded me of when I was in Boy Scouts and doing orienteering, and you had to go like 50 yards at 90 degrees, right? Well, if you went 91 degrees, you're off position, which at that case was a bad thing, but it's a little change can make a big difference
The longer
over
you
time.
go.
Yeah.
The longer you
The
go,
farther
the worse
down.
it gets. Yeah.
So
Right.
we're all looking for
Or the
that
better,
big
if
change.
the change was like the wise men.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right, and that so any big change in our lives begins with
A whole bunch of little ones,
the
probably.
little ones, right?
Yeah.
What do they say? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step.
Mhm.
So, all right. Well, God bless you, and say nice to meet you. Yeah, nice to meet you. Oh, that's what he said. All right.
Happy
Take care.
Epiphany.